Jack Heath here, J Dog on the boards. Welcome to Tuesday. We have some sunshine out there, still on the cooler side, but I'm not sure I would call a few inches of snow tonight a storm, but you know how it is. Tomorrow, Thursday, near 50. A week from tomorrow, March 11th. A week from tomorrow. Forecast for a high here, not in Fort Lauderdale, here, 65. So there you go. Spring's around the corner, but we have a packed show for you. Going to get you going fast. We got a great guest out of the gate. We're going to introduce you to in a moment. Our poll question up on X this morning, J Dog. People forget, and we should not. With heightened security in airports right now, after what's going on in Iran and the Middle East, TSA agents, for the most part, still not getting paid. Partial government shutdown. But the last time I checked, Senator Chuck Schumer and his gang are getting paid. TSA agents aren't. And we're telling them to do more and be more vigilant. How stupid is this? Our poll question up on X at the Pulse of an Age. Do you support ending the partial government shutdown over homeland security concerns and politics over ICE? Because that's what it's really all about. In midterm elections, I think the short answer is yes. What do you say? J-Dog will have results from yesterday. We will wait.
Now I will.
Oh, you will? And do you think there'll be a prolonged war? Take it away, J-Dog.
Will this be a prolonged war with Iran? 70.6% saying no, 29.4% saying yes.
Yeah. All right. And let me know, please, when we have Mr. Fitzpatrick, I believe we have. And I just want to say the president meeting with and by the way, I got to go back to the basics. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, New England. Benny Media, we're now the largest media company independently owned and operated in New England. Good morning worldwide. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Some new news this morning, and we're going to update this. We have a great guest to do this with us. I'm going to bring in James Fitzpatrick, it's Fitzpatrick. He's an Army veteran. Thank him for his service. I thank him. He's the director of the Center to Advance Security for the U.S. And President Trump saying now this morning or overnight, the president and the administration saying Iran's Air Force, Navy, and the air defense are now gone. And looks like he's not as concerned about talks with the new leadership because the teeth of the tiger have been taken out. We'll see. But I want to bring in our guest, James. Thanks for joining us here on the Pulse of an Age.
Hey, Jack. Thanks for having me. Great to be here with you.
Thank you for serving in the Army. Where are you joining us from? Where are you this morning?
I live in the greater Philadelphia area, and that's where I'm joining you from.
Tell us a little bit about the Center to Advance Security in America.
Sure. So I'm the director of the organization, and we are an organization that is dedicated to improving the safety and security, really, of the American people. We focus on all sorts of work, including research, litigation, records requests, things like that inform people about the actions of their government and its officials and the impact on your safety and security.
Now, James, I understand that we're going to have varying opinions. I understand that members of Congress want to be more informed and involved. I know the Gang of Eight was briefed yesterday. We had a lot of coverage yesterday. It's an ongoing situation, watching everything from the market, Straits of Hormuz, the flow of energy and oil, as well as security, and who's going to take over in Iran next. And are they going to give up on being the world's #1 sponsor of terrorism and nuclear ambitions? But from your point of view, what are we missing in this story? And what's your reaction thus far to what the United States and Israel have managed to accomplish, taking out the Ayatollah who's ruled there since 1989? And I guess his whole underlying support, if you will, in terms of his own team, taking them out. What are we missing? What's your reaction to the overall 20,000-foot question on this Operation Epic Fury?
Sure. Yeah, I think we just have to take a step back and think about how this is really a generational foreign policy move by President Trump, and one that prior presidents, frankly, just haven't been brave enough to carry out, and one that is consistent with America First foreign policy objectives. Look, these strikes are defending the American people from imminent threats. We heard from the president that not only were our military members in the region being threatened, but that they actually were developing missiles that could potentially reach the continental United States. This is an Iranian regime that is the world's largest sponsor of terrorism, and one that just simply refuses to negotiate to give up its nuclear weapons program, and just doesn't understand where they are after they were obliterated last summer. They don't understand, their position in the negotiation here. And the president understood that, understood the imminent threat, and struck them before they could strike us.
Yeah, I don't think people understand the historical significance of this strike and what's already happened. I don't think a lot of people. The other thing I was, because you and I could take hours on this, and we don't have that much time. And James Fitzgerald will tell you the website as well for his director. He's executive director, Center to Advance American Security. But when Bin Laden was taken out, and last night, just because of the way I am, I watched 2 movies to tell you what makes me tick, James. I watched the newer Maverick Top Gun, with the strike on the uranium enrichment in Iran with John Hamm, and then I've only seen it 42 times. And then I also watched Zero Dark 30 last night, which was the operation through the CIA, to get Bin Laden, and by the way, sovereign Pakistan. But I don't think people understand. I don't think people, and certainly young college students on Columbia University, I don't think they understand much at all. But I guess my point is, I don't think people understand just how bad, in terms of total worldwide deaths and terror, that this regime in Tehran, the Ayatollah and his team, what they were supporting, whether it was in Yemen, Hezbollah, Hamas, around the world, Dubai. I don't think people understand. I really don't in America. And you know what? People don't know their history. I don't think they really know how bad this regime was and what it was doing in the world in terms of terror. I don't think they understand the gravity of who we took out.
That's exactly right. Let me lay out a few examples, right? You're right. The average person in America hears Iran. They don't really understand why Iran is a threat to us. Like I said, not only are they a direct threat to our people in the region, but they're a direct threat to the United States. And for decades, they have attacked and killed our service members and citizens. And it's tough to understand because it's not direct. They fund and they militarily train all sorts of terrorist militias in the region. And it's really for the past 47 years, right? So just a few examples of this. They launched a assassination attempt on President Trump in 2024. It was online. They were recruiting people to potentially assassinate him in the United States. In 1979, they took 50 American hostages after they stormed the U.S. Embassy. There's actually a movie created about that. They've directed and supported the bombing of a Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, which killed almost 250 Americans.
Or in Yemen, the USS Cole. People forget that the Houthi.
That's right. Yep. Exactly. Look, you could go on and on. And
I have one question for you, James. I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to let you finish. You served in the Army. How long?
I'm still in the Army Reserve, but I was actively deployed in 2018. I was in Kuwait and Jordan.
Okay, so you've probably been to VA centers around the country, correct?
I've been to VA centers, yep.
How many veterans do you think this guy and his bad guys in Tehran, how many IEDs do you think they supported, and how many legs of our American service members like you do you think were blown off because of the regime in Tehran over the years in the last 20, 30 years? How many, can we even calculate that?
We can't even calculate it. It's a great point. Countless American service members were either killed or permanently injured by roadside bombs, which was the brainchild of these people. They realized that was their best way to strike us in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere. And that is what these militias did. And yes, that's exactly right. Whenever you hear of someone that's been named by a roadside bomb in any way, the Iranian regime likely had something to do with it. So, and that's just in addition to all this stuff, right?
Or suicide bombers in Paris, France, Dubai, hotels. Anyway, real quick, we got to run. We don't know how long it's going to go. We don't know who's going to stand up and say, "Hey, I'm in charge here." Probably not a healthy thing for anyone to do right now in Iran. But your group, your website, best way to get a hold of you, and thank you again for your service. I appreciate it.
Sure. Best way to find us is on X. We're at Secure USA, and our website is advancing-america.org.
Well, James, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jack. All right, take care.
So Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal, just sending me a story. We'll get him on the show. Former executive counselor Guess he's not running for governor, but Andrew Volinsky. Back in the news, he wrote a book about education funding. Very passionate about it. I give him that, or at least credit for that. But he's going to hold a press conference, I guess, today to announce his push for a. You ready for this? You might want to sit down. Might want to sit down. Might want to buckle up here. His push in New Hampshire today for a $1 billion state income tax. Here we go again to help fund local schools. I'll come back to that in a minute. And he says lower property taxes. Now, I give him credit again for his passion. He's a very smart person. He's passionate. He's written books about this. The original Claremont lawsuit. I've had him on my show. We'll get him on again. Might even calling him this morning if he's listening. He's always welcome. I mean that. But I got to tell you, folks, I'll come back to this. I've been around this for a few decades. And this promise to bring in a income tax to cut your property taxes, if you believe this for a New York second, as I say over and over again in my program, I got some really nice oceanfront property for you in Columbus, Ohio. And I remember Arnie Arneson, who's also equally as passionate, I mean that, about her politics, and she still is. When I hosted Close Up at WMUR TV for years, I'd have 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans on the weekly public affairs show. And Arnie Arneson, when she ran for governor, and back then she was in the state house, told us decades ago New Hampshire needed an income tax, or we would have basically no public education and property taxes with lower property taxes. Every state around us, let me repeat this, every state around us, Maine, Mass, Boston, Vermont, has huge property tax increases in a crisis right now because people keep spending on education and they have all the income taxes you can invent. You don't bring in a tax to lower a tax. But I applaud him, his passion. We'll come back with that. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.
Hey, we have a new weekly podcast.
Pros. Outdoor Pride is the Granite State's largest landscape and snow management firm, proudly serving commercial properties from Greater Manchester to Greater Boston. Visit them online at outdoorpride.com. Now, back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we do have a little wintry mix coming tonight, but we get into the warm stuff. A week from tomorrow, 65 for a high here. True story. Thursday here, near 50. So, not much more, folks. Not much more. I wanted to touch upon this taxation story, and I thank Graham at New Hampshire Journal for calling it to my attention today. Andrew Volinsky, longtime Democrat activist in New Hampshire, former executive counselor. Some thought he might run for governor again. He's written books. He filed the original Claremont lawsuit on terms of public education funding decades ago. Very passionate attorney and activist for public education, and he's coming out today with a plan for a $1 billion income tax for New Hampshire at the State House. He's going to unveil this plan. He'll have a name for it. They'll throw numbers at it. And I like Mr. Volinsky. I'll get him on the show. He's been on the show he just has a new book out. He's a lot of fun. And when I say that, he's passionate. And I always think people who are passionate and informed are enjoyable to discuss public policy, even if you don't agree with them. And I mean that. I'm not being flip when I say that. And I said that for years about Arnie Arneson. She's very passionate and very, good person, very passionate. Okay. So with Andrew Volinsky's income tax plan, he's going to announce today. Let me just tell you a few things after seeing a thing or two in this state for a few years, almost like that insurance commercial. I don't know if it's Allstate. I've seen a thing or two. Graham could do a editorial from my commentary, but he probably won't. I've seen a thing or two over the years. And let me just tell you some facts. You don't lower one tax ever by introducing a new tax. That's like saying you have a pain in your shoulder and you're going to hit your shin with a hammer to take away the pain in your shoulder. You don't lower one tax by bringing in another. And what you need to do in this debate, because arguably New Hampshire's property taxes in most communities are too high, with very few exceptions. Very few. Probably Rye, Newington, and Newcastle, to name a few, or one of the Moulton boroughs or Tufton boroughs. That's about it. You look at Dover, New Hampshire, Durham, New Hampshire, property taxes are way too high. And it's because the town planners and managers keep spending. Even with Dover, where they have a tax cap, they blew through that this time around by $1.5 million. And they just need to stop spending so much and figure out a way to be innovative and still provide good education, good roads, good public safety, and they can. The other point that's very germane is New Hampshire has one of the overall lowest tax burdens of any state in America. Let me repeat that. New Hampshire, along with Alaska, Florida, South Dakota, Wyoming, Tennessee, Nevada, New Hampshire, some of the lowest, it's overall taxes when you live in a state. So you can pick out one tax, property taxes. Okay, they're high. New Hampshire has high property taxes. But we have no income tax, none. Massachusetts has 2. Maine has a sales and income tax. Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Vermont, they have a thing they call the progressive income tax. There's nothing progressive about an income tax, which is funny. And the highest level in Vermont for a couple that's not rich, but they call them rich, 240, 250 grand a year, I think, is about 9% of your earned income. Look at states like California and New York City when you take someone's income and you start taking the taxes out and how much they really gross or make after taxes. New Hampshire is one of the lowest overall taxes per capita of any state in America. That's in March of 2026. New Hampshire has one of the lowest overall tax burdens, even with property taxes included, of any state in America. And it's for one reason and one reason only. We don't have an income tax, Mr. Volinsky. Sorry. We don't have an income or sales tax. It's the only reason why, and we don't have a dividends and interest tax anymore either. And we have lower business taxes. New Hampshire has some of the lowest overall taxes in America, even with property taxes included. Let me repeat it again, just so people get it. and you're not sold a bill of goods here. New Hampshire is one of the lowest overall tax burdens of any state in America. When you hear Kelly Ayotte talk about don't mass up New Hampshire, Massachusetts, the People's Republic of Massachusetts, Governor Haley Land have lost about 200,000 people, according to WBZ and Boston Media, over the last few years, moving out of the state because of taxes and income taxes. And by the way, someone who has a lot of relatives living in the state of Maine, places like, well, former house in Brunswick, my brother-in-law, houses all the way up to Bangor Brewer. You know what they complain about in Maine? And they have an income and sales tax in Maine. And they have all those other crazy taxes that Governor Mills and the legislature passed on things like pension funds, raising hunting and fishing licenses, ATVs, streaming services, legal cannabis, prescription medications, cigarettes. They have an income and sales tax, and people still complain about high property taxes. In fact, the town managers in Maine with an income and sales tax are saying, where's all the money, Augusta? We need to provide ambulances and fire and police. Where's the money? When you bring in new taxes, the system gobbles it up and no taxes go down. Let me repeat that. When you bring in a new tax to lower another tax, it doesn't work. You don't bring in a tax to lower a tax. It's false math. And New Hampshire has one of the lowest overall tax burdens overall of any state in the country because we don't have an income or sales tax. So if property taxes are too high, and I'd say this to towns like Durham and Dover and other communities, Exeter, Stratham, the city planners and town managers have to say, this is how much money we're sucking out of our property taxpayers. We can't do any more. We have 75-year-old retirees that are being priced out of their home in places like Portsmouth and Durham and Dover. They've lived there for 25 years. They can't afford $18,000 a year in property taxes. And here's the false BS argument in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. They are building more $2 million condos downtown, in my opinion, selling the younger working soul out of Portsmouth, that blue-collar, hard-working, middle-income. No one under the age of 40, for the most part, can afford to buy or live in Portsmouth, which is sad. They have people moving in, spending $2 million on a downtown condo with no kids in the school system, and Portsmouth keeps raising property taxes, and Durham and Dover saying we're going to raise more, and we have declining public school enrollments, and they need more money for education. Declining enrollments in public schools. Wealthy people coming in to buy all the houses that young people and the police officers and teachers can't afford, and you want to raise property taxes, and seniors are getting screwed and can't live in their houses anymore. Where are they going to move to? Stop spending. It's real simple. 2 words. Stop spending so much. Stop spending. Stop spending. Figure out how to provide a good education with what you get. Your property taxpayers have to live with the money they bring in and pay bills. Learn how to do it. Learn how to do it. Live within your means in these towns and stop telling the property taxes every year with declining enrollments and wealthy people moving in, we need to raise your property taxes. Stop. Just stop it. And we do not need income or sales tax to lower property taxes. It doesn't work. Some commentary. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, coming up. Brad Card, a whole lot more. The Attorney General's office in the 10 o'clock hour. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an Age. Back in a moment.
News
All right, welcome back. We have a lot going on. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. John Decker, our own White House correspondent. Brad Card coming up. And just looking at some of the hypocrisy, Congress continuing this partial government shutdown. I had to laugh. It's not funny, it's pathetic. We're telling and asking TSA agents to be more vigilant. Security is a bigger concern now after what's happening in Iran and the Middle East. And we're not even paying them, but Chuck Schumer and the gang are getting paid. But the latest, President Trump saying this morning, we've pretty much taken out Iran's Air Force, Navy, and their missiles, but we still have obviously a tense situation. So we don't even care about negotiating with who's standing up next. But this continues, and it's a big concern, and more congressional questions in terms of oversight. John Decker, our White House correspondent. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning to you, Jack. Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah. Well, where are we at on, is it day 4 or Tuesday morning? The president spoke yesterday. You were there. What's the reaction? What's the mood inside the White House? Where are we at?
Well, I was there. The president making his first comments in the East Room yesterday upon returning to the White House after this military action began over the weekend. The president indicating that this military operation would last weeks. And the president also spelling out what the 4 objectives of this military operation are. And the president indicating that that military operation will not conclude until all of those objectives have been met. In the meantime, we see oil markets reacting. We saw oil surge 7% yesterday, up again today. This will have an impact, and in some places already is having an impact on prices that we pay at the pump. And we'll see, I think this week, we'll see a reaction coming from the president. The president has not been afraid to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. He did so in the beginning stages of that full-scale war in Ukraine. The president also indicating that would certainly bring down prices at the pump.
And you get a sense, John, and we're going to talk with Brad Card about Congress. Do you get a sense that the president is looking at days and weeks and not months? That was a big comment. Secretary Hegseth said, look, we're not getting into a prolonged war here in the Middle East with boots on the ground, but this is we know what happened with accidental fire in Kuwait, our pilots and losing the jets, having to bail out and eject. They're going to, and we've lost, at least, I don't know, is it 4 or 5 or 6 service members already? And there'll probably be more. Do we get a sense of how long the intensity will go before things settle down?
Well, we do have an idea about the intensity. Both Secretary of State Rubio and President Trump said yesterday that the intensity in terms of the firepower that the U.S. will bring to Iran is going to increase in the days ahead. As far as boots on the ground are concerned, the president said yesterday in remarks that he made in the East Room, he's not taking that off the table. He said, why should he take it off the table? Nothing should tie the president's hands in that regard. At the same time, it's important to remember there is no plan for that. And the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, has indicated that there's no need for American boots on the ground. The president has said that regime change is not the focus in terms of this operation, although we've already seen the Ayatollah Khamenei being killed in the first days of these airstrikes. And
I think one big mistake, Brad Card and John Decker, that the whatever's left in Tehran or Iran are doing is firing missiles at places like Dubai and the United Arab Emirates and other Arabic nations. Not a way to make friends. But thank you, John.
Thank you, Jack. Bye-bye.
All right, Brad Card, one of our political analysts and all-stars, and of course, co-host of Contact Politics. John Decker, our White House correspondent, was our guest last week, and we'll have another great guest. But Brad, good morning.
Hey, Jack.
Well, you've been watching like all of us. I don't have to pose questions. Your thoughts, and where are members of Congress that you speak with, members of the Senate and the House, in terms of your work? Where are we at? What are your observations as we're into Tuesday now?
Well, I think what we should start with is we do have a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, and I think it's important for people to understand what that means. So it's not just ICE. It's not just the Customs and Border Protection. It's also the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. It's FEMA. It's the U.S. Secret Service. It's Transportation Security Administration, which, by the way, when we're at war with Iran, and we know that they use buys terrorists. I think
Kind of
that
stupid,
we
isn't it?
Want to be on our game. United States Coast Guard.
How about TSA?
That's all. Yeah, Transportation Security Administration. That's it. And U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which oversees lawful.
Well, Brad, where's the
immigration.
pressure? Where's the national media pressure on Schumer and others saying, hey, we're at a heightened security level here, and your politics over Homeland Security, this is not the way to do it. We have to be safe at home, and your partial government shutdown is not doing that. Where's the questions of him?
Well, it's a good point, Jack, and I don't even know why the president didn't bring this up during the State of the Union, where he called out, quite frankly, in a very direct way to say, you guys are trying to make changes to ICE and CBP. We can have those policy discussions, but they're already funded. They're already funded, so they're not going to get changed right now.
Yep.
Period. And all these other agencies within the Department of Homeland Security are affected, which is negative. So look, there is some concern amongst Republicans, and it's going to be more private. They're not going to be public about it, about what our real mission is in Iran. And is it regime change? And if so, what are we thinking? Experts have said that the ballistic missile program that we're concerned of is probably more than 10 years out, or about 10 years out. The president said previously we dismantled their nuclear capability, at least for the time being, and for the foreseeable future, which is going to take time to rebuild that. So I think that there's a legitimate question that people saying, okay, well, what is our mission there, and what's our time frame? And it's very noticeable to me that the vice president has really not been out front on this at all. And what comments he has made, he attributed to the president. The president is doing this and the president is doing that. And we know that J.D. Vance has been really vocally opposed to any wars or any military engagement, really. So it's an interesting dynamic that's at play. Right now we have elections going on. We got first primaries of this cycle. We have Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas. Texas is a big deal. This Senate race in Texas is really taking shape. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, he was hardcore MAGA, election denier, on and on and on. Had a lot of personal problems, and people can Google them. I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of mainstream Republicans would hate to see Ken Paxton win. John Cornyn is the establishment guy. And then Wesley Hunt, who's a congressman, is in it. So it looks like they're going to be heading to a runoff. And the question is, who is Ken Paxton going to be in a runoff with? Is it going to be Senator Cornyn, or is it going to be Congressman Hunt? So that's something that we're going to see. And on the Democratic side, they have a real fight as well. James Tallarico, who's a representative in the legislature in Texas, and Jasmine Crockett, who's a congresswoman. She is going after the hardcore Democrats. She's playing herself as a Democrat, saying Democrats need to rally behind her and get out, and that's how they can win the election. And Tallarico is talking, we need to reach out to independents. We need to reach out to moderate Republicans, and that's how you win. So there's big dynamics at place in Texas, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out today.
Interesting. What else, Brad? Because you gave us a great congressional update. Observations, as this progresses, midterm, long term, is this going to be viewed as a historical moment when the United States, more than capturing Maduro, bad narco terrorism drug guy in Venezuela, this is the Ayatollah of Iran. He's been running that country since '89. I just had an Army veteran on. You can't count the number of IED devices they supported over the years that took legs off our service members. You can't count the backpack suicide bombers. You can't count the attacks on the USS Cole, the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. World #1 terrorist organization and country, and his command taken out. So far, thank goodness, Russia's sitting back in China, but very significant. And I'm not going to ever get through to some of the students at Columbia University who I don't think know what day it is, but that's my opinion. What's the historical significance, and where does this go as time goes on in that region, or does it not? Do we wind up back in the same place where whoever takes over pushes uranium enrichment, pushes nuclear ambitions, supports the Houthis in Yemen, blows stuff up. What's the significance if we can actually take the teeth out of this tiger?
Well, I know most members of Congress are getting briefed, I believe, today at 3 o'clock. The intelligence communities have already received briefings. The Armed Services Committee, my understanding, has already received briefings, which is good. I give this president a lot of credit for what he's doing. He's not going in with his hands tied behind his back. You don't get into one of these things unless you get into it all in, and you go all in, and you everything on the table. And I think the president has said that, which I agree with. And you don't fight wars to lose, or you don't fight wars to get through. You fight them to win. So I give the president a lot of credit for going all in. I don't think there's any halfway that you can go in. I think you either go all in or you stay out. So I give him credit that he's all in. And I think that we're going to have to let this play out. It seems to me like it's probably going to take quite a while. I'm not privy to any of their battle plans or anything, but it's a big country. There's an awful lot of underground facilities, and we've seen videos of some of them with all the drones that they have.
Right.
So it's going to take some time.
Yep.
And I also think the Iranian people have to stand up for themselves at some point, and they're going to have to.
Well, they tried that recently, and how many were slaughtered?
No question. I mean, so I give the administration credit for doing what they're doing. I know that they're starting to do briefings, which I commend them for. They need to do that, and I think it's a good thing that they're doing that. I think they should keep Congress apprised of what's going on. And it's going to take some time.
Let me ask you this, because I just got to go back to our Ivy League, some of the college campuses and this crap I've seen, death to Israel, death to America. This is illegal. Well, I last night, you know me, Brad, tonight the Bruins are on. So I think it's the Penguins. I think we have the game, the pulse here. J-Dog will correct me. But last night I happened to be watching the new Maverick Top Gun movie, which is taking out nuclear enrichment in Iran. Tom Cruise. I've seen it 45 times, and I watched Zero Dark 30 again, where they got Bin Laden under the Obama administration. And what's amazing to me, Brad, do some of the people, because I've seen a lot of positive protests that are peaceful and chanting good stuff about supporting what we've done with Israel, but this anti-Israeli feeling over what's been going on in Gaza, and these people don't even know that Hamas was supported by the guy we just took out, terrorist organization. The same people are empathetic to groups like Hamas, and now they're saying that, what we did is wrong in Iran. I'm curious, do they know? Separate note, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it, but I'll shut up. A few weeks ago in Afghanistan, because you remember how the Biden administration left Afghanistan. The Taliban, obviously, this took over, right? Do you know a few weeks ago they ruled publicly that the Islamic State of this Ayatollah before he was taken out, they ruled publicly, Brad, that for Taliban men and women, couples who are married in public, it's legal in their, whatever you call that law they have, it's legal for a man in public now, not just in the home, but in public, to beat his wife in public if he feels that she's done something wrong. He can beat his wife in public and face no con. And that's in Afghanistan, young girls and women. Where's the outcry? It's like there's a confusion in America about who the good guys and the bad guys are. And I shake my head sometimes. I really do.
Yeah, well, I can fix a lot, Jack, but I can't fix stupid.
That's a good line.
Look,
that's a good line.
I think it's people that just they just like to protest, and they ought to be thankful every day that they can do that in this country, because they wouldn't be able to do it in all these places that they're standing up for.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is, and I don't lose a lot of sleep over dumb people. To me, this administration has been pretty
fun.
open with the public, and they've been pretty accessible to the media. And you may not like everything that they have to say, and I think I've been critical of many things that they've said, but they've been open, and they've been more open than almost any presidency that I can think of.
Yep.
They've had more press availability than anybody. So it is what it is. I think this is people are already screaming about how long we're going to be there. Well, they've only been there for a few days, and Iran's a big country, and there's a lot there. And Iran, I think, is burning bridges by attacking neighboring countries. That to me is dumb, but that's what Iran's doing. So hopefully we'll have a bigger consensus to support the U.S. forces to go into as we proceed into Iran. So I give the president time, and it is very tragic. We have lost American military personnel, and we're going to lose more, and that's sad. And unfortunately, that's part of going to war. And it's one of the things that I know presidents have worried about and lost a lot of sleep over.
Right.
But it's hopefully in the nation's best interest, and we'll be successful.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Brad Card. Appreciate it, Brad. Can't fix stupid. Well, why did you yell at me on a golf course in Florida once for allegedly taking your viewfinder, your rangefinder, and it was in your golf cart the whole time? You chased me all around the golf course, thought I had taken your rangefinder.
Because I wouldn't say that you were stupid, Jack. You're a little slow sometimes, though.
All right, Brad, have a good one. All right. We got a great segment coming up, top of the 10, the Attorney General's office, to tell you about that. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an Age. Back in a moment.
107.7.
New Hampshire.
All right, we have Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, Day 2. as we look at the Middle East and things at home. Keep an eye on things like oil prices, the markets. Doug, day 2 of the week from Saturday morning, where I think history changed and will change short and long term in the Middle East. Where are markets at, Doug? Good morning, worldmarketadvisors.com.
Good morning, Jack. Yeah, markets are reacting to the prospect of this being longer than expected. Oil prices are up about $5 in West Texas Intermediate, about $77 a barrel. And global markets are down about 3%. Now, this has been one of the least volatile starts of the year since 1982. It's been very, very compressed. The market is just off of its long-term highs, or all-time highs. And so it's no great surprise that the market would react to this. So at this point, it's kind of a standard reaction to an unexpected geopolitical event, something that happens maybe once in a decade. So that's where the markets are at.
You know, speaking to a very informed former governor, business expert, I'll say it, a good friend of mine in the show, Craig Benson, he said this yesterday, or one of the folks said this, I talked to. It's almost like the markets, whether it's a government shutdown, they just build so much more into not being surprised by anything. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's correct. It's been said the market discounts all available public information. They tend to predict 10 of the last 5 recessions.
Yeah.
So the market gets a little bit spooked, but it's not a huge surprise since there's so much information that's being processed all the time.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Jack, you have a great rest of your week.
All right. Our poll question up on X. We'll come back to that in a moment, tell you what it is at the Pulse of an Age. Coming up, we're going to introduce you to the folks who work with witness victims and witness assistance and victim stuff and a bunch of stuff in terms of making a difference in those who are victimized by things like domestic violence and other crimes. And we'll get great people at the Attorney General's office here in New Hampshire. That's coming up next, 10 o'clock. And also Mike Cody, New Hampshire Business Review. We're going to have a great fun segment towards the end of the 10 o'clock hour. Tommy Moulton and the great one, former Boston Bruin, Rick Middleton, live on the show this morning. Bruins hosting the Penguins tonight. They might be there. Their great documentary on the Paralympic, the sled hockey team that they coached to gold, is out on Peacock. And it's a great documentary, and Rick Middleton and Tommy Moulton will be joining us in the 10 o'clock hour to tell you about how to see that. Very motivational, very uplifting, very positive documentary. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an Age. Jack Heath, the illustrious one. J-Dog on the boards, back with the Attorney General segment.